Imagine hearing a bell ring and instantly your mouth waters. Strange, right? But that's exactly what happened to dogs in a famous experiment that changed the way we think about behavior. This experiment, conducted by Ivan Pavlov, marked the beginning of a fascinating journey through the world of psychology. Over the years, many great thinkers like Pavlov and B.F. Skinner have shaped the field, helping us understand how we learn and why we behave the way we do. In this video, we'll dive into the evolution of psychological thought, from Pavlov's groundbreaking work on conditioning to Skinner's experiments on behavior. These key figures not only shaped psychology, but also gave us valuable insights into how we learn, make decisions, and react to our surroundings. Buckle up as we explore the journey from Pavlov to Skinner and how their ideas continue to influence the way we understand human and animal behavior. Our journey begins with Ivan Pavlov, a Russian physiologist whose work laid the foundation for behaviorism, the study of how behavior is learned. Pavlov wasn't originally studying psychology at all. In fact, he was researching digestion when he accidentally stumbled upon one of the most famous psychological phenomena ever discovered: classical conditioning. Pavlov noticed that his dogs would start to salivate whenever they saw food, which wasn't surprising. But then he observed that the dogs would begin to salivate even when they simply heard the footsteps of the person bringing the food. Curious about this, Pavlov decided to conduct an experiment. He began ringing a bell every time he fed the dogs. After repeating this many times, he noticed that the dogs started salivating just at the sound of the bell, even when no food was presented. This experiment revealed a critical insight. Animals and humans can learn to associate one stimulus, the bell, with another: food. Over time, the dogs had been conditioned to expect food whenever they heard the bell. This process, which Pavlov called classical conditioning, showed that behaviors can be learned through association. Classical conditioning occurs when a neutral stimulus, like the bell, is paired with an unconditioned stimulus, like food, that naturally produces a response, salivation. Over time, the neutral stimulus becomes a conditioned stimulus, triggering the same response on its own. Pavlov's experiment showed that behavior isn't always instinctive or inborn. Some behaviors can be learned through simple associations. This discovery had a huge impact on psychology, shifting the focus toward understanding how behavior can be shaped by our experiences. Pavlov's work laid the groundwork for other psychologists who would explore how learning and behavior are connected. Taking Pavlov's findings one step further was John Watson, an American psychologist who is often referred to as the father of behaviorism. Watson believed that all behavior, both in animals and humans, could be explained by conditioning. He was convinced that our environment shapes who we are and that we are born as blank slates. One of Watson's most famous experiments involved an infant named Little Albert. In this experiment, Watson wanted to see if emotional reactions, like fear, could be conditioned in humans, just as Pavlov had conditioned his dogs. Watson showed little Albert a white rat, to which the child had no reaction. Then, every time Albert reached for the rat, Watson made a loud, frightening noise by striking a metal bar. Soon, Albert became frightened whenever he saw the rat, even without the noise. This fear even spread to other similar objects, like a rabbit and a fur coat. Watson's experiment demonstrated that emotional responses can be conditioned in humans. While the ethics of the experiment are highly questionable today, it reinforced the idea that behavior, including fear, can be learned through association with external stimuli. Fast forward to the mid-20th century, and we meet another giant in the field of behaviorism, B.F. Skinner. While Pavlov and Watson focused on how behavior can be conditioned through association, Skinner took a different approach. He was more interested in how consequences shape behavior. This is what he called operant conditioning. Operant conditioning is all about reinforcement and punishment. According to Skinner, behaviors that are followed by positive outcomes are more likely to be repeated, while behaviors followed by negative outcomes are less likely to occur again. To study this, Skinner used a device called the Skinner box. Inside the box was a lever that an animal, often a rat or pigeon, could press. When the animal pressed the lever, it received a reward, like food. Over time, the animal learned to press the lever more frequently to get the reward. This is called positive reinforcement. A behavior is strengthened by a positive outcome. Skinner also demonstrated negative reinforcement, where a behavior is strengthened by removing something unpleasant. For example, in the Skinner box, an animal might learn to press a lever to turn off an uncomfortable electric shock. In both cases, reinforcement, whether positive or negative, increases the likelihood that a behavior will be repeated. Skinner also studied punishment, which involves presenting an unpleasant consequence to reduce a behavior. For example, if an animal in the Skinner box received a shock every time it pressed the lever, it would soon stop pressing the lever. However, Skinner found that punishment wasn't as effective as reinforcement in shaping long-term behavior. He believed that rewarding desired behavior was far more effective than punishing unwanted behavior. Skinner's work on operant conditioning had a huge impact on fields like education, therapy, and even business. His ideas about reinforcement and punishment are still used today to shape behavior, from teaching children in schools to training animals and even designing workplace reward systems. The work of Pavlov, Watson, and Skinner changed the course of psychology by focusing on observable behavior rather than the inner workings of the mind. This shift toward behaviorism was revolutionary because it emphasized that behavior could be measured and studied scientifically. Before behaviorism, psychology was dominated by psychoanalytic theories from figures like Sigmund Freud, which focused on the unconscious mind and internal conflicts. While Freud's ideas were influential, they were difficult to test scientifically. Behaviorism, on the other hand, relied on experiments and observable data, making it more objective and measurable. Despite its success, behaviorism wasn't without its critics. One of the main criticisms was that it ignored the internal processes of the mind, our thoughts, emotions, and motivations. Critics argued that humans are not just shaped by external rewards and punishments, but also by complex mental processes. This criticism led to the rise of the cognitive revolution in the mid-20th century, which emphasized studying the mind and how we think, learn, and remember. While behaviorism focused on the what of behavior, what people do, cognitive psychology focused on the why people make certain choices or have certain thoughts. Today, many psychologists take a more balanced approach, combining insights from both behaviorism and cognitive psychology. We now understand that behavior is shaped not only by external factors like reinforcement and punishment, but also by internal factors like beliefs, memories, and emotions. For example, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, one of the most widely used therapeutic approaches today, combines behavioral techniques with cognitive strategies to help people change their thoughts and behaviors. It's a perfect blend of both schools of thought. Behaviorism's focus on action and cognitive psychology's focus on thought. The journey from Pavlov to Skinner is a fascinating look at how our understanding of human behavior has evolved. From Pavlov's dogs salivating at the sound of a bell to Skinner's pigeons pressing levers for food, these experiments showed us that much of our behavior can be shaped by simple associations and consequences. But as psychology has progressed, we've learned that behavior is influenced by much more than just rewards and punishments. Our thoughts, emotions, and beliefs all play a role in shaping who we are